Hello, we have a second line day, and this is actually our second line of the day as well, because the sun is in two lines in the same day, if you are in GMT anyway. So this is gate 5, the gate of waiting, the gate of fixed rhythms, and we have the very beautifully named second line, inner peace. There's a lot of beauty in the second line. Often we concentrate on the sort of disadvantage almost because they're so exposed. It's where everybody can see in through the window, looking at them, calling them out. But the other thing to recognize about the second line is the beauty of their spirit, because it's the spirit that gets called out. Well, not just mundanely, but gets called by the forces. Any second line you have in your design is where you can be called. And the second line doesn't know it. They're ignorant in their own process. They don't even know that they're in their natural pattern because they just are their natural pattern. Second lines are always projecting outwards. This line is projecting outwards that they have their fixed rhythm. I know what my natural fixed rhythm is. I mean, they're not saying that, they're just putting it out there. This is what they project into the world. And of course, it may not be true. Just the fact that they're putting it out there doesn't make it right, doesn't make it so, number one. Lifetime learning, the ability to ignore the temptation to take premature action. So these are people who are projecting outwards the ability that they will not take premature action and that they are living out their natural rhythm. Well, that's what they're projecting out, that natural rhythm to others. The exaltation says the gift of maintaining composure through idealizing tranquility, the power to be comfortable with one's own rhythm. When you take a look at all the gates, you find that there are many second lines that are in perfect hexagrams for them. They're in alignment with the energy there. They're designed to be called out, and there are many rewards for that. And then there are other places within the wheel where the second line doesn't want to be called out. It can be disturbing for them to be called out. And that's the case here. The lower trigram is not equipped to deal with or recognize that there is another, that there are all those possible extreme rhythms in the 15, and it's better off alone. In the detriment, inner peace experienced as stagnation, the drive for power that is constrained by the fixed rhythm. The second line doesn't want to be called out. Generally speaking, it's like, leave me alone. But of course, it always is called out at some point. Someone is going to look through their window and say, could you share that inner peace with me? It's collective, after all. And what happens here in the detriment is that it's driven to be receptive by getting to the point in its process where it finds its own pattern structure boring. The same thing over and over again. You always walk in the room in the same way. You put your clothes on in the same order. You turn this light on like that. You clean your teeth like that. And all of a sudden you feel totally stagnated. Rhythms can be extreme, but not patterns. They have a limitation, and rhythms tend to bring variations to groups of patterns. So the fives really must be secure in their pattern. This pattern, this ritual, is at the heart of the repetitive process, this mastery process that is the logical circuit. It's one thing to say, this is my natural rhythm, but that rhythm in itself may not be producing anything. So many people who have the 5 and the 15, they spend a lot of their time doing nothing. This is about being in the flow. Being in the flow doesn't mean that you're always moving. It means that you move, you rest, you move, you rest, whatever the flow demands. People who have the 5 and people who have the 15, they go through periods where they can't move. There's nothing to do. There's no flow. And they can suffer because of that. They run around like crazy and then they suffer because of that. There's nothing to do. Oh no. And then they suffer. And yet the exaltation says there is the power to be comfortable with one's own rhythm. And this comfort can be projected outwards. So can the detriment, of course, the drive for power that is constrained by a fixed rhythm. In the moment that the fixed rhythm does not feel good, they do not really know whether that is their natural rhythm or if they're living out a projected rhythm, which they take for their own natural rhythm. But it is stagnating because it's not taking them anywhere. They don't feel like it's productive. They start looking for some other kind of rhythm and they break their own ritual. Yeah, I used to have a nap every day at 4 o'clock, but one day my apartment was on fire and I ran out and now I don't do that anymore. I don't bother with the nap anymore. They break from what they were projecting as their natural rhythm, and suddenly you find out that it's not what they are at all. This is a student who says, every night from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock, I'll be in my room studying. And then one day you go over there and you open the door and the window's open and they've made a run for it. They've been gone for hours. That fixed rhythm for them was stagnating and they couldn't cope with it, so they did a runner. Yeah, they don't know whether it's their natural rhythm and it's a temptation to break free from that and then try something else. And of course, the results are going to be predictable. So the grounding comes from the gate 35 in the second line, which is called creative block, which is perhaps what you might think you're experiencing if you are a 5-2 in detriment and you've got that inner peace as stagnation. Perhaps the 35-2 can bring some comfort to the 5-2 as it leans into its lifetime learning of cultivating the ability to ignore the temptation to take premature action. So this is the second report today, the sun transiting 2 lines. So we only have one moon movement to look at here. Earlier on, we found the moon was in gate 38, the gate of the fighter, and at 0112, it moves into gate 54. This is another root center gate, this time tribal circuitry, and this is the gate of the marrying maiden. The pressure that fuels the ambitions of the tribe to rise up, to transform, to be the best tribe that ever there was. And tomorrow morning at 3:45, drumbeat, please, we have a nodal shift. The north node is moving into gate 25 and the south node is moving into gate 46. So we're looking at half of the vessel of love here. This is a transit that is going to last just shy of 2 months. The nodal themes can be expressed in a way where the south node themes are more prevalent for the first half of the transit. So that would be the gate 46, the love of the body, that kind of thing, the temple, bringing awareness into that, maybe bringing that out in some way. And then the north node is more about the second half of the transit. And that's not written in stone, but it is one way that these transits of the nodes can be experienced. So yeah, for the next month, maybe you're looking at that 46 and the themes that go with the determination of the self, that experiential energy that is there. And then moving into more of a theme of unconditional love, which is more about empowerment. So you've got the collective at the beginning of this transit, moving more into the self-empowerment of the unconditional love, universal love in the early part of January. But maybe it's something also to feed in from the temple where you have that love of the body and you've kind of move that into unconditional love for yourself. It's part of centering circuit. As I say, centering is individuality and that's empowerment. But the centering can also have a sort of a self-empowerment thing because it makes a little bit of that backbone that we see in integration. There's, part of that is in there. But unconditional love for the self could be a theme in the second half as we come out of December and into the early part of January, and we start exploring the other themes that are around then, to do with the new year and the approach of the rave new year on the 21st of January. Okay, so that is the second line of gate 5. Thank you very much for joining me. And yeah, nothing else I was going to say today. No, I'm done. Thank you very much. Take care. Much love to you. Go gently.